Hi, this is Seth from PositivePsychology-com, and today I'm making a video about meaning. The reason for this is that I've asked our mailing list a while back to send me any and all questions that they have about the concept of meaning. And I still got a lot of them here in a spreadsheet that I'm looking at that are not answered yet. I gave some presentations about meaning. We did a course about meaning and wrote some blog posts, but there are still so many questions left here that I want to answer, not one by one, because a lot of them are very similar. So I've kind of grouped them together into different categories in a spreadsheet. And I want to start with the most prominent question, and that is like, what is meaning? And I personally think that this is one of the most important questions to ask, because why would you go out and try to lead a more meaningful life or help other people lead more meaningful lives if you don't know exactly what it is that you're looking to promote? So that is why I'm still very much interested in finding out and getting to the core of what meaning is. And this already raises a problem, because I say the core of meaning, assuming that it's one thing. And I think this assumption is where researchers and a lot of people thinking about this subject go wrong right off the bat. So let me walk you through my thinking, and you can tell me what you think about this. Right, so if I had to give an answer to the question, what is meaning, I would say that it's a word, right? It's a word that we use, and more specifically, it's a word in the English language that we use. So it's an English word. Okay, maybe this sounds very banal to you, thinking that I'm stating the obvious, but I actually think that a lot of people skip this step and try to go right into a definition of a concept that's very complicated. So now the question becomes, like, what do we try to designate when we use this word, or maybe it's different things. So if we look at the word meaning, we find out that it's mostly being used as a noun. So it is something in that sense, whereas there are also sentences like, what are you meaning to say, where meaning is a verb, but obviously we're not talking about that kind of meaning. So let's just put that aside from now and focus on the noun, the common noun meaning. A common noun, what is a common noun? Then becomes the question that is a word that designates a class of things, which ties back to what I was saying earlier, is that meaning may not be one thing, but it designates a class of things. So then the question becomes, like, what class of things does the word meaning designate? And that is kind of the question that we're trying to answer when we're trying to find out what meaning is. So the researcher, Dmitry Leontiev, he came up with the definition of meaning in one of his papers that says, the essence of meaning is its relational nature. Meaning is the relationship between the mind and the world. So I personally think that this is a really interesting definition, maybe also a bit more accurate than a lot of the other ones that I have come across. But the problem with a definition of meaning is that you're trying to give a definition about a whole class of things. So this seems like a category mistake to me, where you're trying to define multiple different things with one definition. So this is not going to work. And to illustrate this concept, I want to show you how Jordan Pederson, who has also spoken a lot and written a lot about meaning, how he is doing the same thing in his book, 12 Rules for Life, in stating meaning is something, meaning is this, meaning is that. And I'll just show you rather than tell. Here, let me pull up my Kindle. I'm opening 12 Rules for Life, and now within the book, I'm gonna search for, quote, meaning is, end quote, and look at everything that we find in the book. So here, the first match he says meaning is to be found on the border between the ever entwined pair. Okay, obviously this is all I'm not placing it in context right now, but I just want to illustrate this concept. Next one, that is where meaning is to be found. Meaning is its mature replacement of expedience, I believe that was. Meaning is something that comes upon you of its own accord. Meaning is what is put forth, etc., etc., etc. So we have 12 matches, and this is only where he literally says meaning is, that all try to describe meaning in a, as a certain phenomenon. It's like an asymptote where you have this line, this graph, and no matter how many words you use to describe this concept, you can only get like very close to that thing that meaning is, but you can never really touch it. And that's also what I noticed with his book. Is like he has all these metaphors. This one, for instance, meaning is the lotus striving upward through the dark lake depths, through the ever clearing water, blooming forth on the very surface, revealing within itself the golden Buddha, himself perfectly integrated, such that the revelation of the divine will can make itself manifest in his every word and gesture. Super big metaphor that he uses to describe the concept of meaning. So I just wanted to illustrate this, that researchers and writers and people who do a lot of thinking about this concept struggle a lot in defining it and describing it. And I think that's because there is not one definition for meaning. So instead we should look at maybe the different terms that are being used, or different types of meaning that there are. And there are some that I have identified. Let me show you here in this model that I've created. Whereas I think the common noun meaning is most often, of course this is not like exact science, so I think most of the time it will fall somewhere within these four categories, right? So the first one is cosmic meaning. So that's meaning of existence in the grand scheme of things. So that's like the meaning of it all, like our purpose as a species here on Earth. And I think that can very easily be dismissed. Obviously I don't think there is a certain purpose that we have as mankind in the exact same way as there isn't the purpose of all of the ants on this planet, or of bacteria for that matter. We're no different in that way. That's just our thinking and maybe our wishful thinking, wanting it to be that way and wanting to be more important than other species on the Earth. And I don't think that's the case at all. And if you're interested in that, I have it here on my desk. It's called The Meaning of Human Existence. It's a book by Edward Wilson. And it goes more into depth about this whole cosmic meaning illusion that we have as man. So that's the first type of meaning, and it falls under what I call the meaning of life kind of questions that you see at the top. So the second one that falls within this category is existential meaning. This one is way more interesting, in my opinion, because this is the meaning of one's life. So the meaning of your life, the meaning of my life. And this is something obviously very subjective. This is what Frankl was talking about in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, when he said about the meaning of life, like, you're not the one asking the question, what is the meaning of life? You're the one being asked. And I think this is a very powerful reframe where he kind of put you in the driver's seat and said, well, you come up with your own meaning of life. So that is what I call existential meaning, the meaning of a person's life. So the top two here, they both fall within the area of philosophy, I think. And the bottom two that we're getting into now fall more into the whole area of psychology. So the first one is situational meaning. So this is the meaning of an event, object, thought, feeling, or living being. The meaning of anything, really. I think the Leontief definition applies here very well, where he said that the meaning is in its relational nature, so it's how we relate to certain things, i.e. the meaning we give or attribute to things. That is what I've called situational meaning. It's also a term that has been used in the literature for this concept, which I like because they're not trying to define or research meaning, but they already have a more specific kind of meaning in mind. Some researchers do this, some researchers don't. I think the ones that don't set themselves up for disaster. Like I said, the reason for that is because meaning is a class of things. Okay, so the bottom one is the experience of meaning, and this is what people are talking about when they're saying like, that was very meaningful to me, or the feeling. This is more of a feeling that you have when you're engaged in an experience, in a challenge, when you're in flow. Of course, this is a big concept in psychology, and a lot has been written about this, about the psychology of flow. That's the experience of meaning. So that is more, I call that meaning in life, M-I-L, and that is also a category that's being used in the literature, versus meaning of life, so M-O-L. I think that's a very important distinction to make. And if we were to all, I don't want to say stick to these different categories, but at least find some kind of categorization that we can agree on as researchers, as philosophers, as psychologists, as people interested in this topic, I think that will really help us in fostering the kind of meaning we're looking to foster. Because let's say you're a psychotherapist, right? And a client comes to you and is struggling with problems around meaning and meaninglessness, maybe suicidal thoughts that he or she is flirting with, and you want to increase this person's sense of meaning in life. So, okay, how are you gonna go about doing that? Maybe this person is just in need of more human connection, which a lot of times, of course, is the case. But aside from that, I don't think you want to right off the bat start focusing on cosmic meaning with this person, where it's like you're trying to convince that person, which of course isn't a good idea anyway, of the fact that he or she should live, because there's some kind of role for us to fulfill as human beings. I think maybe it's a mix of existential, situational meaning and the experience of meaning that you want to focus on. But of course that differs on a case-by-case basis. But having these different terms, these different types of meaning, will definitely help us in fostering certain kinds of meaning. But I'll talk more about that in other videos. I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and I'll answer some more specific questions about meaning in other videos. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one.